GameSpot's continuing coverage of the Electronic Triple 2014. We are nearly done. Only 2 appointments left, 2 guests right here on the GameSpot stage. I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin Doyle,
Hi.
a man with a name that's possibly more Irish than mine.
Oh, possibly.
You're community manager for Black Gold Online.
That's right.
Snail, you guys are based over in China, is that correct?
We're based out of Suzhou in the Jiangsu province in China, and we also have a satellite office in Santa Monica here in California.
Fantastic. A global operation.
Absolutely.
I like it, and probably fitting considering you are you're one of those studios building entirely new worlds. I remember actually, I believe, not this stage specifically, it was about 20 feet that way, but I was talking to one of you guys about Black Gold Online last year. You guys are pretty close to our actual launch.
We are, in fact, actually. So here at E3, we're actually showcasing a lot of new things coming out from the Snail Games office, but the centerpiece of all of that is Black Gold Online, which will be coming into open beta on June 20th, and to sort of get ready for that, we actually have some special goodies. I have my my Steampunk Black Gold Online top hat to show
that's
everybody.
pretty rad.
And also I wanted to introduce, in addition to myself, we have our own special little guest here. This is Maurice Wilcox. This is our flat family. He won a virtual contest to join us here at E3, so by all means, say hello to Maurice.
What's his name? Maurice?
Maurice Wilcox.
Hey Maurice, we're so glad you could join us here in Los Angeles. Where does he live?
Somewhere down south, I forget. I'm
okay,
sorry.
somewhere
I'm
where
gonna feel bad about that
nice
now.
and warm. We would have. Yeah, there you go. Maurice, you're right here, Maurice. Maurice has now been inside of me.
Oh yeah, now he's been inside of Daniel Dwyer.
I feel like I know.
Few can claim that honor.
Not many can. I'll tell you that. How many of these hats you got lying around?
We've got a lot still given away in our booth, and all the leftovers will be given away through some community programs we'll be running out of our own office. But we also got a few, I think 5 or 6 that we've been giving over to GameSpot to give out at their leisure.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll find some nice Twitter homes for those bad boys.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into the meat of it. Black Gold Online is an MMO. I feel like these games live and die on the specifics. So let's talk about it. We got some B-roll up here.
Black Gold Online is a fantasy steampunk crossover MMORPG. So it takes place in this fantasy world called Montel, which is split between, in the east, something called the Irlander Union, which is basically a series of races that are filled with magic and elemental fantasy and sorcery and mythical beasts. And to the west, Kingdom of Eisenhorst, which is more steampunk, neo-Victorian mixed with spaghetti westerns, and they ride into battle on these giant walking and flying mechanical monstrosities.
And are both these cultures kind of at odds with each other?
Absolutely. So for most of the backstory of the game, for a long time they were completely separate, and then recently they have discovered each other, and now when players enter the game, they are basically on the edge of all-out war. So they're at war over the namesake of the game, this resource called Black Gold. It's this powerful elemental energy crystal which the Kingdom of Eisenhorst uses as the foundation of their industry. They burn it as a fuel, and the Irlander Union uses it as the foundation of their magic. They worship it, they chant around it to channel elemental energy in the form of fire and water and wind magic.
You don't have to stretch too far into geopolitics to see some sort of metaphor in there as well.
Absolutely. East and west over resource. It's basically, the game is about a war over territory and a war over resources between two totally different worlds. They're completely opposite on an artistic level, and on a conceptual level of their gameplay. They're totally different.
One of the things about MMOs that I've sort of has irked me a bit in the past number of years is that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, whenever you joined one faction, you had to play a certain way, and whenever you joined another faction, you had to play a different way. We've seen this sort of homogeny of many of that sort of like faction v faction stuff where, hey, you know what, if you want to be that guy from that side on this side, it's okay. How defiantly are you splitting the two cultures in Black Gold?
Well, there's a couple things about that. So for one thing, there are factionally specific classes. So at the moment for open beta, which again goes open on June 20th, we're going to have 4 playable races, 2 for each faction, and 12 playable classes, 6 for each faction. At full release, which is coming later in the year, we'll have 6 races and 18 classes.
Okay.
And those will be factionally specific, though for the open beta, we are allowing a few crossover classes you can play for, maybe a fantasy class, but you really like the way it plays and you want to be on the steampunk side. All the different classes have really unique abilities, but they also have parallel systems. So there are people who are more sort of like off tanks and people who are more like healers, but all the different classes blur those lines of your typical tanking, DPSing, and healing sort of roles that you'd play in the typical MMORPG.
Cool.
And on top of that, in addition to our basic combat, we also have mounted combat. We have these battle carriers, which you basically create and build over time, and those are distinct for each of the 2 factions. Again, they are parallel in terms of their structure, but you have sort of walking, you can see on the screen, giant monstrosities on the these are sort of black gold mutated creatures for Irlander, and on the Eisenhorn side, you have these walking mechanized machines.
I was getting a kind of an Unreal Tournament 2005 vibe off of some of the mounts on the other side. So you said there you actually build and improve them over time. Are the mounts sort of in that way like personalized to you a bit?
They are to a certain extent personalized, so you do create them throughout different activities in the game. There are actually over 100 different carriers you can get in the game, and you choose yourself how you upgrade them and develop them along different development lines, and they're yours. They take persistent damage. They have their own attacks and their own health bar. And if they get destroyed, then they're destroyed, and you have to really take care of them, make sure they use them appropriately.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about the moment-to-moment action we're seeing here. To me, this is looking very much on at least a superficial level, like many MMOs I've played in the past. So explain some of the sort of what makes Black Gold unique in this respect.
So one thing you see, we're kind of in this video switching in and out of using our battle carriers, which is really one of the things that makes Black Gold Online stand out. There aren't really any other MMOs that have this level of mounted combat. We have regular mounts for transportation in addition, but we have all these carriers that you can use for mounted combat. In addition, our actual combat system itself is very action-oriented. It's not your typical tab target you see in a lot of MMOs. It requires a lot of aiming and a lot of dodging, so it kind of mixes together these kind of slash them up and also like range casting and also sort of some FPS in the terms of the way you use the carriers. So that is a really unique feature alongside the really unique art style of clashing between steampunk on the one side and fantasy on the other.
So the combat definitely seems to be a focus, as you just alluded to there.
PvP is a huge part of this game. It's not exclusively PvP. We have tons of things like instance dungeons.
You have sort of battlegrounds type stuff.
We have battlefields that you can also participate in. There's sort of rolling battlefields everybody can participate in. We also have certain cool guild competition endgame features called energy wells that have their own type of mounted and unmounted battlefields.
Yeah, can we talk about those a bit? I saw some of that in a trailer recently, and I found it looked pretty interesting.
So the energy wells are these pieces of the map that the whole map is actually divided up into little chunks that can be captured and controlled. They all have their own fortresses that are called these energy wells that are sort of reservoirs of black gold that will give certain benefits to those people who control them. So every week there's a factional war between Irlander and Eisenhorn to capture for your faction certain parts of the map for these energy wells. The rest of the week after that, all of the guilds of that faction will then fight amongst themselves for personal control.
Excellent.
So you're kind of teaming up on Saturday and then at each other's throats on Monday to try to get personal control of these. And there's a lot of really great political backstabbing and negotiations in terms of diplomacy of teams building, teaming up to take on more powerful guilds and capturing these energy wells to get special instances, special daily quests, and also a daily reward of black gold, which they have to distribute amongst their guild mates in order to use them.
So how much of the overall map involves that type of territory battling?
Well, the entire map is it's actually a huge explorable map. We still have some areas that are under construction that will come out for the full release.
Wouldn't be a beta otherwise.
Exactly, but for the open beta, you can pretty much walk from one edge of the map to the other completely on your own. It's a completely open, explorable world. And really every single area has some kind of energy well territorial dispute, and so as we expand the map, we'll build more energy wells to make that feature even more integrated into the system.
Cool. I'm assuming as well both factions have some sort of a home hub area as well.
Absolutely. So the further to east and west that you get on the map, the more distinct the art concept and the environment will be. So we can actually see on the map we're in the south west of Eisenhorn, and so it's really this kind of barren wasteland desert. You see it's very it's actually, so these are sort of the ruins where one of the expansion classes, or one of the expansion races will be adding into the full release, the Euperian vampires, where they're going to live. But as you also then get towards the center, you see there's more contested regions where you see maybe like tribal totems right next to little cobblestone streets as the two styles kind of intermix and juxtapose. So each race has their own distinct storyline that as you go through, there's special quests that you do particular to each race. You start out in different sort of home worlds, and that is where that goes from. And you can also see, this is a little example of our skill tree where each class has their own distinct skills that can kind of intermix, so players can really customize in terms of racially, in terms of what kind of carriers they get, and also in terms of what kind of skills they use in a daily, in their day-to-day combat.
So you've talked a lot about the PvP stuff. I want to talk to you about questing as well. When I was playing a lot of MMOs in the past, one of my most favorite part was getting lost on my own, away from the idea of interacting with other people. Sometimes it just broke immersion a little bit too much. If we talk about questing, it's something of a known quantity in a lot of MMOs now. It is the go find, go kick 5 chickens or go pick up 10 ruined pelts. Is there anything you guys are trying to do with quests to do something new and break new ground?
In terms of our actual gameplay, so the quests are one part of the general leveling grind that you can participate in. So really the way we see it is the quests are more to reveal the story of the game, because in addition to these major factions, there are a lot of really interesting sub-factions going on. We have sort of these, there's a cult that's trying to bring about the end of the world, and there's also rogue genetic mutation scientists and things like that. And these are sort of sub-antagonists who will sort of plague you throughout the game as you explore the world and see more of it. Also, the role of the quest is to introduce new game features to you. So as you level up and go through these quests, they introduce the carrier system to you. They introduce the battlefield system to you. They introduce what we call adventures, which are these cool mix of PvE and PvE opt-in activities. And once you reach the point where you have discovered those, then you can actually freely participate those in whenever you want to acquire extra gems and extra gear and stuff like that.
Cool.
But as you said, also, the game is still in open beta, so as we move forward, we're also looking to expand on more elaborate quest lines as well.
I want to remind the folks home, if you have any questions for Kevin about Black Gold Online, at Danny O'Dwyer on Twitter. I'll keep an eye on now. I should have said it earlier. But if you have any questions, I'll make sure to shoot them all over. Okay, so it seems like you guys are doing a lot. You've got the sort of the PvP stuff. You've got the battleground stuff. You have the energy wells as well for the Black Gold, and there are questing as well. What is the general moment-to-moment play of Black Gold Online? Is there a lot of farming? Is there a lot of exploration? Like, what would you say is the one thing that you'll probably be, what's driving you in Black Gold Online?
Well, really what's driving you in the game, as far as the way we try to build in the motivation behind any player, is greed. In this world where the two factions are fighting over territory, fighting over resources, and those resources are becoming increasingly scarce, you're kind of out for yourself, and whether you band with your faction, band with your guild, or just play by yourself, you're always looking to protect yourself in that way. So there's a lot of, for one thing, open exploration, trying to find new things, we have open world dynamic events called outbreaks that just pop up randomly, trying to find those so you can get special points and special gear for that. Trying to go into instance dungeons with other teammates in order to get high-level gear. Just exploring the map to see what other kind of cool things there are out there, and then also participating in these rolling battles, both open world PvP against other players in the middle of the map, and then also these structured mounted battlefields that we have.
Cool. A variety seems to be the key to
you
it.
do a bunch of different things over time, depending on what you want to do. So there also is a crafting system, like you mentioned, and it is something you can also, so you don't actually even have to do the PvP if you don't want to. If that's not your style, there's also plenty of PvE to do, and there's also a crafting system where you can create your own equipment, and the crafting system requires a lot of teamwork because you only get one profession, and the different professions have to work together to create higher level gear.
Okay, so,
as you get further
collaboration is sort of key in that respect then
exactly.
as well.
You have to find, we have an internal auction house that...
See, look, this is straight out of Unreal Tournament 2005. I love it. I'm not saying you guys ripped it off. I'm saying I like where you're going with this.
Exactly. We've got all these different carriers. Some of them can fly. There's actually 5 classes of these battle carriers. This is an example of the aerial one.
Sweet.
And each of the different carriers has advantages and disadvantages. So there's like a rock, paper, scissors assortment, so none of them are on top. So there's aerials are flying. We have assault, which are really heavy duty against other carriers, but weak against aerials. And then we have an anti-air, which is really weak against the assault, but very powerful against the aerial. And then there's other ones such as Raid for hunting down players on the ground, and Siege for during those energy well battles, besieging enemy fortresses, like knocking down walls, destroying turrets, and even sometimes you can acquire bosses that will protect your fortress for you. It's easier to take those on if you have the Siege carriers available. So it requires a certain degree of teamwork as you strategize, figuring out what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, trying to win those battlefields.
Sweet, I got time for one more question. I'm going
to
throw this one out for Stuart Hopkins on Twitter. He's asked, is there a subscription model in place for this, or is it sub-free like Guild Wars? What's your model for this bad boy?
It is a totally free-to-play game, so at the moment the download is already available for the June 20th beta, and we actually also have, we want to plug a special early access character creation section, because we have it's our internally developed game engine called Flexi.
It's called something great.
Something awesome.
You got it.
It's called Flexi, and it's a very intense, very integrated character creation system, so we want to give people the opportunity to get in the game, reserve their name, and pre-make their characters. We also have a retail box edition available with some of our partners at GameStop, Amazon, Best Buy, and several others. Those are available for pre-order with special content available for people who order that. And it's completely free to play, so you don't have to pay a dime. It's an entirely optional monetization model where essentially, in addition to open world loot that you can get on your own, there's special ways that you can get extra loot by earning it through special quests that you can do, and then you can purchase extra stuff on the side from doing that.
Sweet. Kevin Doyle, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Danny.
Black Gold Online, pleasure to have you here. Can I wear the hat for the outro? Is that all right?
Take a look.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. We're going to be back with Plants vs. Zombies later.